Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Curity 11.2 uh, release webinar. My name is Renato Ataides. I'm the Chief Engineer at Curity. I'm here today with Mark Dobronit, who is our longest, I believe, serving core developer. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, pretty long. Yeah, I've been around in the backend team as a developer.
Yeah, since the beginning almost. Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining, and we will start here with the highlights, so, as we always do. Uh, in this release, we have a very interesting new feature that we're calling it new token issuance authorizers. Authorizers. Or you can see it as part of our token intelligence features that we are working on. And there is also a second feature here. I will demo this too, so let me just mention it right now. We redesigned the profiles page in the admin UI, which made it really much nicer and capable to handle a lot more profiles. In the beginning, we designed this not to be showing a lot of profiles, but as we have had several cases where customers want to have many profiles for different use cases, we now support it much nicely, much more nicely. So, okay, so let me get right to the part where I demo this. I will just log in here to local Curity instance I have running. So before I get to the scopes and claims, I want to show here the profile page. If you go to the main page, let's say the system page, you can see there is also here a new profile tree. The profiles are grouped together according to the links that exist between them. So here we can see that there is a user management profile that's linked to the token service and linked to which in turn is linked to the authentication service. And then there is another group here with authentication and SAML. And just a second, you can start searching here. For example, I just want to see the OAuth profile. I can immediately filter by typing here. And if I go here to the main profiles screen, it's very similar, but we also have even like a filter by type. So when you have a lot of profiles, this greatly improves the experience. So I can see just the SAML profile if I want to, or the token profile and so on. And of course, the filtering also works in the same manner. So very nice. So let's get right to the OAuth profile now so that we can do a little bit of a demo here of the token. What we are actually abbreviating the token issuance authorizers to just TIA, which is a bit easier to say. So let's go with that for now. Mark, could you explain a little bit what this feature is and why we are adding it?
Yes, of course. So we have introduced the token issuance authorization, as Renato mentioned, as part of what we call token intelligence. Like we group together a little bit of the specific features that people see when integrating AI or agentic access, and when they want to control access to that. So tokens issuance authorizers, they are a configurable way of controlling access to issuing scopes of tokens. And this is mostly to make sure that if a client is allowed to request particular scopes, you might only want to issue these scopes when a particular grant type is used, or when a particular authentication method is used, or when a user has authenticated like in the last minute, so you have a guaranteed fresh authentication, so you have more assurance of that user is actually at the keyboard. So what this is basically trying to do is allow you to better control the issuance of scopes based on the context that a token is issued. And it's fully configurable. It's got the screens, the plugins, which makes it very easy to find what you do, and also to reuse it on different types of scopes if you have the same criteria that you want to have applied there. So the configuration part, how to manage it, is based on two things. First, there is the management of the plugins. If you can show that,
Okay,
Renato, in the token
while you were
authorization.
talking, I was trying to show that how you create one. So I
Ah,
already created, so it already showed up here. But
cool.
if you want to, let's just go back a little bit, just so people understand. So can you explain like what are the different types here?
Cool. So there is different types that we ship. In particular the grant type. So you can have a scope that is only issued when, for example, the authorization code flow is being used.
Which is what I
Um,
had just done, right? The grant type.
yes, exactly. There's also filtering based on the client type. That
Client
means
tier, maybe.
That means that you can actually have restrictions on when a scope that can only be issued to clients that are configured statically and not ephemeral clients, for example,
Mm, yeah.
or only to ephemeral clients. So you can fine-tune access to whatever usage or how the client actually interacts with the system.
And the ephemeral clients are the ones that are using AI scenarios, right?
The ephemeral clients is a feature that we introduced in the previous release of Curity, which is a standard that clients don't have to be pre-registered, but a way of dynamically discovering clients' capabilities. But it's
Right.
kind of tied to how agentic AI is being used.
Yeah. Cool. Oops, I should have stayed there. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So I mentioned some before, authentication freshness. You can
mm,
say a scope can only be issued if a user has authenticated very recently. So a higher value scope transfer
hmm
money could be limited only to fresh authentications, not SSO, but fresh
mm,
authentication, for example. Same kind
you're
of
right.
line of thinking goes for the ACR ones. So only issue a scope when a user has, for example, multi-factor authentication, and not when it is only authenticating with a password. Also for higher valued scopes, it's very nice to be able to restrict that.
Mm,
And
yep.
then we have an integration one that's authzen, and authzen is a standard about how to communicate with PDPs with policy decision points. So it's an external policy evaluator that can actually make an allow or deny decision for a scope. Authzen standardizes that. We implemented the standard, but we also made sure that it does fully and nicely integrate with OPA, which is kind of like industry becoming an industry standard
Mm,
of access policy.
right. So, great. So let's now show how you actually use those. Now that you
Yes.
created a few here, I just, was creating every different
Yeah.
type here. But if we go back, you see like when you select one here, you can actually go directly to assign scopes to it. So let's say we want to configure the profile scope with one of those. Now you see that
Cool.
this appears here because we created a few of them.
Yeah.
So we just need to pick one of them here for just for the sake of this demo, let's just Alt Zen, and maybe for the phone number you want a different one, my tier, and so on. And then you can see the different tiers here, right, Mark? It's
Yes, exactly. When I talked about it just now, it's like sometimes you want to have multiple scopes together and have the same access policy applied to them. So, for example, Renato, if you could select a few scopes in the left
mm-hmm,
and mark the checkbox, this is also a new feature. Then you see there is
mm-hmm,
a way that you can select authorized scopes indeed, like that.
yep, okay.
And what you can do now is basically bulk edit the token issuance authorization on the scopes that you have selected to make life easier for you as an admin.
Mm-hmm. So
So
I
if you
just click
select
here
it,
now. Yep,
yes,
okay. There you go.
there you go.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's
Uh,
in a nutshell, basically it. I would like to say that we have implemented this framework. We will be continuing and following up with some more TIA plugins in next releases. And as it's kind of a new feature, it is still marked experimental, which
mm,
explains a little bit why we want to move forward with it. But please start using it. If you have feedback, we love to hear about it. And in the meantime, we
Yeah.
just continue implementing and adding more features to this part of the system.
And here's the new docs that we wrote for this release. You can see that it's well documented, and we explain exactly how it works. I should have mentioned that the tiers are all plugins, right? So all of those different types, they're actually plugins. Is it possible
Yes.
to implement custom plugins, Mark?
Yes, there are SDK plugins. So the interface to the plugins is being made available through the SDK. So you
Nice.
should be able to write your own plugins. You get a context of the request, and the plugin is able to use that to make a decision. Feel free to experiment with that, but also realize that we are also working on a script tier where you can actually use our scripting engine to also implement your own custom logic to make access decisions. So that's upcoming.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. Great. This was the first two highlights. We also have three more, I would say, minor highlights. First one is the BankID authenticator has been quite well improved. There has been some big changes going on. I have here the BankID documentation. They introduced this return URL string parameter, which is a part of the effort by BankID to make fraud detection a bit better. And it's changing quite a bit how BankID is used. And I would suggest that for customers who are using the BankID, you should really go through our upgrade guide, which explains exactly what are the changes required by you. We provided this feature as completely as we can, but it still requires a little bit configuration, and changes may require changes on templates depending on how if you customize them. So please have a look at those if you want to understand more about the BankID changes that are happening. We also have been working more and more on automating database cleanup, and this is a little bit related to that. So we enhanced how delegation and token revocation happen when a client itself is revoked or deleted. So it will, if you do need to enable this in configuration, but if you do, it's just you just enable it's a flip switch. When the client is revoked or deleted, you don't need to do it yourself. If you might have had external means of doing this before, but now the product itself will clean up the delegation related with delegation, which represents the authorization grant, which means that any tokens related to that will also get revoked if the client is deleted or revoked. And finally, there is a
Cool.
sorry, yep.
Yeah, it's a front-end logout support on the self-service portal. So we ship the self-service portal as a application with the server. We missed out on having the front channel logout support. So if the front channel logout was invoked somehow, it didn't end up in self-service portal. And 11.2 now is adding support for that front channel logout.
Right. Okay, so now we also have made updates in the Happy SDK as we normally do. I don't think there's anything major there, but it's good to be aware. We did make a couple of changes there that shouldn't be breaking changes. I will mention that in the list of issues we've resolved. But now we're just going to go through every single enhancement we've made, try to give a good overview of what is being changed, what has been improved. So first of all, in the web UI, we redesigned the profiles page as I already demonstrated in the little demo. So this one should be clear now. In the Happy Authentication API, in the polling steps, we added a polling interval to help clients implement polling in the best way possible. So the server usually knows what's the best polling interval, and that information was not available. Now it is. So we recommend that clients be updated to use this if possible. It's not mandatory, of course. In BankID, I already mentioned return URL. changes. So this is just mentioned. It can now be configured to use that configuration, like I mentioned before.
Yeah, the upgrade guide and the
Yeah.
documentation, you should check those.
Yes,
I'm sure if you use BankID.
I didn't want to go into too much detail because it's too
No.
many details to talk about. So I tried to kind of just go over very quickly, but please look at the upgrade guide for more information. Then we have also related to the profiles. We not only improve the UI, but we also improve the backend to support more profiles. So there has been an optimization made that allows a much larger number of profiles to be configured and loaded much faster than before. So in case you have a lot of profiles, there should be a significant improvement there. In the BankID consenter, we updated the polling. We had done this, I think, in 11.0. We improved the authenticator, but we didn't do the same change to the consenter. So the consenter was not using the same enhanced logic for polling, and now it is. So also a good improvement there for BankID. Another thing, consenter plugins, they now can configure a template area. You might know that Curity has this concept of template area for authenticators, clients, right? I don't know if there's anything else, but Mark, do you remember?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, which allow you basically to have slightly modified or completely modified views for if not particular client or authenticator is being used. But we didn't have that feature for consenters, and now it's also support for consenters. So this could allow much better branding if you're using consenters. So check it out if you are. Data source, we now allow any data source that provides a nonce data access provider implementation to be used in nonce custom token issuers. So this was not allowed before, it was just overly restricted. You needed to have support for all token data access providers. But because if you configure a custom token issuer to only use nonces, that was not necessary. And that's why we relaxed the requirements. And this has the side effects of allowing the distributed cache to be used for this. The distributed cache we announced in the previous release as an experimental feature. In this release, there has been improvements to it, but it's still experimental. We do recommend customers to have a look at the distributed cache if you think it might help in your scenarios, because it may make it a little bit easier to manage Curity installations if you use that feature. There may be performance improvements, of course.
Well said. Then, as for the data source, there is now also an option to allow to initialize database schemas. We have made an effort since 11 to simplify the management of databases and using Liquidbase for that. So we extended the use of Liquidbase also for initializing database schemas now.
Right. Yes. So in 11.0, it was only possible to upgrade, right? So to make changes to existing database, but it always assumed the database already existed before 11.0. And with this change, we take ownership of the whole database. Or not, like if you enable this option, it will generate the whole database, not only apply the changes. Yes. So it's a long-term goal for us to make database management much easier than it currently is, and this is a big part of that. So
yes.
Let's keep going. Another data source change. Yeah,
you mentioned this guy.
Yeah,
you mentioned this guy before as one of the bigger things. Yeah. So you're able to revoke delegations now by client. So all the tokens and everything that are issued based on top of the delegation will also follow that revocation. So it's simpler management.
But
There is one thing to note is
yeah,
that because you are now filtering based on different criteria, like the client ID, so this does need you to double check your indexes on the databases to make sure that the performance is as you would expect. So take a look at the release notes if you're looking into using this feature.
yeah. So the cost of that feature is basically the added index to the database, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. So exactly, as Mark said, upgrade guide gives more information, but you just need to add an index. It shouldn't be a big change, and only need to do this if you enable this feature, which we recommend
Yes.
enabling. So
Yeah.
another data source here, we now support the AWS Postgres wrapper. As I understand, AWS provides a Postgres wrapper for using their own managed Postgres databases. And unfortunately, that didn't work with Curity, but we made some changes to allow that to happen. So if you're using in AWS and you are already using Postgres or want to use Postgres, it's a little bit easier now with this wrapper support. Our Docker images, the max, this is a Docker parameter, max RAM percentage is now being explicitly set to 75% because the default is only 25%. So if you didn't do it yourself, you might have run into the default unless you set also XMX, which is quite common to do. So hopefully you did one of those two. But if you didn't, you might run into the default, which was not an adequate default because you probably want the container to let Curity use most of the memory. So that's why we made this change. But have a look at your own images and make sure that either you're setting this already, or if you're happy with the 75%, it might be adequate. Otherwise, you can also set XMX, which overrides the parameter we set. Okay, Dynamo database, we now allow configuring some HTTP client connection parameters, which was not possible before. So this might help customize the client in case it's necessary, depending on the use case.
The next one is fixed
Yeah.
color for OpenID wallet authenticator, but this is like it's an enhancement. It's there. We improved a little bit how that looks, so the theme is now
Yeah, it's
currently used in a better way.
part of the front end themes, right? That
Yes.
we support. Yeah, I think we just forgot to make this particular view follow the theme correctly.
Looks even better now.
Yeah. So we now provide a new tool, the code session, that can be used to inspect session data. This is something that it's the data that goes into the session is a little bit private. How to say? It's an implementation
An internal
detail.
format.
It's an internal format, exactly. But it does contain data about what the authentication steps are currently performed, and that it might be necessary in certain cases for debugging purposes to look into that data. We also had requests about what kind of private information about the user we store there, because we do store this in the database. So we decided to provide this tool. It's only for debugging purposes. You should not rely on the formats, for example, for anything, because we want to be able to change this as necessary. So it's not guaranteed to be stable. But if you want to know what exactly is contained in the session of each user, it's not possible. You do need to look at the database directly, because the cookie that contains this information is encrypted if you use cookies for this. But in the database, you should have a value that this tool can decode.
So the next one is it's an extension to the SDK for application profile plugins. So if you are into developing an application plugin, you now also have access to the introspector SDK. So you are able to introspect nonces or tokens from inside your application plugin go through the SDK. So it makes it a lot more powerful to use that.
Right. Yeah. And if you tried before, it just wouldn't work, right? Because it
Exactly.
was not supported.
Yep.
So it might be very useful in an application plugin if you have any. Uh, in the OAuth and OpenID Connect side of things, we added a few more DCR events related to the client's management. We have been almost every release now adding new events. Our event system is quite powerful. If you don't know about them, have a look at event listeners. They allow you to listen to things that happen in Curity, like for example, in this case, DCR client management related events, and you can, perform actions depending on what the event was. Another one about the same topic. We now consider the client status and when introspecting tokens and when using delegations. Um, so this is related to client revocation and deletion. And yeah, we just started looking now. I think it's you need to enable this one, right, Mark?
Yeah, it's an error
Yeah,
because I think if this is the one that involves an action on the database backend explicitly. So
right.
it's not enabled by default, as far as I know.
Yeah, it says here.
Yeah, it's managing tokens and the status of the tokens and delegations. So please take a look at that.
Yeah,
We're doing a lot of things implicitly, but this is also making things more explicit. So the database more correctly reflects the status of tokens without looking
right.
at clients.
Yeah, but I would say it's really recommended to enable this because unless you do want your tokens to be independent of whether the client that obtained that token is still active or not. But
I totally agree.
yeah, that should be
Yeah.
probably an edge case if you do need to have the the old behavior. It will be much more likely you need to enable this feature to get the new behavior.
Yeah.
And one more
The
on
TS
this,
we talked
yes,
about.
exactly. That was our main highlight for this release. It's funny that it's kind of right in the middle of the release notes, but yes, we don't sort this in any particular order. This is an interesting one. Our JavaScript token procedures, they used to be compiled for each Java request thread as they were used, and we did that to make sure there was complete isolation between uh, different threads, because JavaScript, as you know, having a global environment that you can actually use, it could cause big problems if you had access to a single global environment from different threads, because that will mean your JavaScript was no longer single threaded. It breaks the language semantics. We changed only the implementation of this to avoid the compilation while still keeping the exact same isolation uh, that we provided before. So there should be zero changes as far as procedures semantics are concerned. If you happen to have global variables, they continue to work exactly the same, which by the way is thread local semantics. So globals are not really global, they are global only in the thread. So as you probably can guess, you shouldn't rely on mutable states that's global because it will just probably not do what you want. But you may have like stateless global variables that are okay to have. Like for example, global functions are okay. Um, but because of this change, we just save a lot of memory because the same byte code is used, but the global environment itself is still thread local. So that's just a memory saving change.
So
Yes.
the logout we have talked about. And then
All
there
right.
is
Yeah.
another configuration option for the HTTP client's token clocks queue. So um,
It's for when the HTTP client itself is configured to use OAuth for
Yeah, that's the
authorization,
one.
right? Then it needs to use a token. It needs to obtain and manage an access token. The token will expire, and what I think what we did before was we refreshed the token 10 seconds before it expires, if I remember correctly. And now we allow you to configure different SKU there. So it may be more appropriate to do it much earlier than 10 seconds.
So the next thing is about customization, customizing the status code when the OpenID Connect authenticator cannot reach this metadata. This was
Right.
customer requested. It's beyond the standard, but it gives you a little bit more flexibility to actually integrate with external OpenID providers. Because it's not like a standard compliant feature, we allow you to enable it through a system property, so you know what you're doing there, but it gives you some better integration options.
Yeah. And the default is we return a 500 response if something goes wrong trying to obtain this metadata, because this should never happen.
Yeah. Well, you depend on external services, so you
Yeah,
cannot fully
exactly.
control
Yeah,
these, and this gives you a little bit more control.
exactly. So if you configure something else, it will be whatever, but it does need to be an error status code, of course. It can't just be 200. It would break other things if it was.
Exactly.
So about this one, I just want to mention that we don't normally mention all of our libraries being updated in the release notes, but we do have exceptions in some cases because they might affect the working server in some way that's visible. And in this case, we are upgrading Apache Mina due to a very high score CVE that we went through the details of the exploit that was found, and we made sure that this does not affect the product in any way. It's simply a function of this library that's never accessed or used by any code that we run. But we wanted to mention this here because I think it was a 9.5 vulnerability, and if your scanners pick this up, you don't have to panic. It's not affecting the product, but we upgraded it just to make sure we
We're up to date.
we don't alarm any customers'
Exactly.
systems. So just be aware of that. And there is a couple more here, just below here. We also updated Jetty and Log4j. Those again are systems that you may need to configure. For example, you may be configuring the Log4j logging system, and Jetty does impact the server, so we do mention those two also here. But yeah, those two there, I don't think there is anything special to say more than that.
No, I agree.
So, but going back here to where we were, we changed a little bit how the email sender works. It was using an internal job scheduler that it didn't have a high throughput. It was a job scheduler designed to do asynchronous jobs, but it just happens that this asynchronous job here is a blocking job, which means it can take a long time, and it should not be using that async job scheduler. So we changed that to be a different job scheduler that was designed to allow a larger number of concurrent jobs to be running at the same time. So there should be significant improvement in throughput in case you have if your server has to send a lot of emails per node. There is I will just jump this one for now because this is related to the email service. We also set some timeouts by default. Unfortunately, these timeouts are not set by default by the library itself, and we use Jakarta Mail for this. We added a note in the documentation about this, but by default, from this release, with this change, by default, we set an appropriate timeout, but you can also configure your own timeouts by just using the Jakarta Mail system properties that are in our new documentation. And now I'm jumping a little bit around. I'm sorry if it got confusing, but back to where we were supposed to be. HTTP server fast restarts. You may remember I think the previous two releases even, we made changes to improve this, and this is a little bit of a continuation of that, just a minor improvement that makes sure that if the server quickly restarts, which is maybe a common case if you update keys, for example, using RESTconf, our RESTconf API, that might cause the HTTP server to restart. And if you do that several times, it will restart every time, depending on what configuration you're changing. It doesn't change. It doesn't restart on every configuration change, but if you change things like crypto, it will probably restart. And now we do it a bit more smartly, I would say, so that you will not see port errors. So timeouts was already mentioned. This one also related a little bit to the job scheduler. When the job scheduler is not able to cope with the loads because there's just too many things happening, the server is not being able to keep up. This can happen in very edge cases where, like you're not provisioning enough hardware basically for Curity to run. You might run into this. You may have seen this warning that the job services could not run a job in a timely fashion. And that indicates a serious problem. The server is in a very unstable state if that warning is logged. And we decided that it's serious enough that we need to flag that into the health endpoint, which is the status endpoint. And the is red flag will be set to false if we detect this problem. So the idea is that the server will be taken out automatically by the load balancer and will be restarted, because this is not supposed to happen. Like the job scheduler is not supposed to run out of not hardware, but take too long for running things, because if it takes too long to run things will probably start timing out everywhere and start breaking.
By adding it to the status endpoint, it's more you can gracefully control the node. So this can actually help you manage things and make sure that problems are solved before they become real problems.
Right. So, exactly. It's hopefully helps with automation.
Exactly.
And if you see this happening a lot, it probably means the provisioning of the Curity nodes is a little bit lower than it at a lower level than it should be. You probably need a few more nodes to handle the traffic.
Or add some more resource to it. Yeah.
Yeah, or larger machines would probably also help. So finally, we have the last enhancement here on the user management profile to allow the emails fields to be empty if the username is email feature is enabled. A little bit confusing, so let's try to rephrase a little bit. When you enable the username is in email setting, that means that the username itself will be treated as an email, and there's no need for us to check the primary email, right? Because the username itself is already an email. So we were not doing that. So we were making the primary email as mandatory, which is, it was not necessary in this case. I hope that clarified things.
I'm a little bit biased, but I understand it.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so let's go through a few corrections very quickly, because these are basically run of the mill. Every single release we make small fixes to the admin UI, like things like this: remove the token handler icon, bring back. Sorry, we have been refactoring a little bit how icons work, as you might remember from the previous release notes. And in that work, unfortunately, this got lost, and it was fixed in this release. Monaco editor seemed to have some problem that was blocking page scroll when hovering over the editor. That was also fixed. The Monaco editor, if it's not clear, it's the code editor we have in our admin UI. So when you edit any JavaScript snippets or procedures, you are using the Monaco editor. Modals render behind, it's a kind of a classic bug in UIs. It shows the pop-ups in the wrong order, so you don't see things as you should. So we fixed one of those with the data source was always being in front of everything else.
Yeah.
This one here is just a console error. Unfortunately, there was a pretty nasty type error crash. Has been fixed now. So when only selecting token exchange in the capabilities model. Creating a procedure from an attribute value provider displays a wrong model. Also has been fixed. Missing UI to configure the redirect URI policies for ephemeral clients. We said that ephemeral clients is a very recent feature. So yeah, it's not a surprise that UI was not completed 100%. So we are finalizing as we find things like this missing. URLs incorrectly shown in the OpenTelemetry configuration properties. I think it's related to format.
Yeah.
I think certain characters were not shown correctly. Go to element. This is a very nice feature in the UI where, when there is a validation error, you can just go to whatever is incorrect that's not validating. And it's, sometimes can go wrong, and we are always trying to improve that. And this is another case for the service provider page.
That was also like that was a new feature in the last release. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's sometimes little things surface and then we try to fix them as soon as possible. And this is one of those. Yep.
Right. This is in
It's
the
for the
new
SAML
ones.
service provider.
The SAML service provider. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's important to mention. So in the authentication service, passkey authentication fails on Androids when the user handle is absent. It's a little bit tricky that this can actually happen, but apparently there are cases for this. And when using discovery credentials, this was causing the server to not accept the passkey, which was a mistake because it should be allowed in this particular case.
It was surfaced particularly by Android devices who showed this behavior. So we learned that and we fixed that. So it's supported.
Yeah. Again, authentication service, the redirect URL whitelist did not support match wildcard subdomains in certain cases. And that certain cases is it only supported subdomain wildcard if the redirect URI pattern actually ended with a wildcard, which was incorrect. It didn't have to end with a wildcard. You can have only the subdomain be a wildcard. So we decided to fix that, and now you can have just this behavior if you need it. So this is kind of a serious problem with the RESTconf API. When you tried to set a certificate, I think it's when you try to create, right, Mark, certificate.
Yeah, when you want to give it a name that contains a white space character, then the server would crash. Well, it's questionable whether you want to use white spaces for IDs of things. But a crash was definitely not something that should be the result of that.
No.
So we were able to address that and fix that. So the server gracefully handles these things and doesn't crash anymore.
Yeah. It's important to notice that names in configuration that are used as IDs, they have a very limited, they are a little bit like a programming language identifier. You cannot just use white spaces, exclamation marks, and symbols and these kind of things. But unfortunately, we didn't validate correctly in this case, and that's why the server crashed. We should have validated at the REST endpoint, which is what we're doing.
Yep.
So I believe now the behavior is you will get an error and nothing will happen to the server,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Okay, DevOps dashboard. There was some inconsistency validation error there when you were trying to create an empty client. That has been fixed. I think that's just allowed, right?
Yes, it's generally improved the way that the
Right.
feedback is given, but it's allowed now. Yes.
In the OAuth and OpenID Connect profile,
This is also it's also a little touch up on the ephemeral
Mm.
client feature. It didn't consider the scopes that the ephemeral client published in its metadata, but instead fell back on the scopes that were defined on the profile that limited what ephemeral clients were allowed to use, and this is fixed now.
Right. And again, on the same profile, mutual TLS client certificate from AWS fails to decode. It was a decoding issue. Apparently, in this kind of certificate from AWS, they decided to encode plus signs. They admit plus signs in the encoded format, which we didn't support. And we decided to just accept that because it is, I'm not sure exactly what is the spec that allows or not allows this, but as we know it's a common scenario, we decided to have a special case. We just understand what the plus means.
Yes, correct.
Just to we need to be a little bit more tolerant when we accept things when there are big providers that actually use that.
I agree.
And this is the last one. Token handler now returns 500 on access denied. Sorry, it returned 500 on access denied where it should be 400, and that has been fixed.
Yep.
That's it. We went through all of the lists. I hope that you guys enjoyed this release. We will enjoy when you start using it. The next release, I have a date here. Just that we have regular releases. It's here somewhere.
Yeah,
June
15th
15th.
of June.
That's when 11.3 train will leave the station. And probably we'll see you guys right after that in the next webinar. Thank you, Mark, for joining me for today.
Sure. Thank you for
Thanks,
leading
yeah.
through the way.
And thanks everyone else for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.